How's it going, everybody? It's Riley's Redzone here, back with another NFL predictions video, and we're into week 2. Last week was the first week of the season, and at least for my picks, it started out a little rocky, was getting a little worried, then it ended up all right. I'll take 10-6, hoping to do better in the future, but for the first week of just looking at what happened on paper, it worked out pretty well. I was able to get some upset picks successfully in there, even a lucky one with the Jets on that last game. We'll talk about the outcomes of what that means for them as we talk about them later in this video. We're going to break down each team and game, and so that'll give us an opportunity to talk about pretty much what every team did last week. So we're going to start with the Thursday night game. It is the Eagles and the Vikings. This one, as a person who has watched the Vikings many times go into Lincoln Financial Field at night, get absolutely destroyed. They, I think, won a day game maybe a couple years ago, but they have struggled at night against Philadelphia. The Eagles, well, let's all say the Vikings did not look good last week. I don't think there is huge concern for them. I think that loss involved a lot of lucky events, or more so unlucky events for them that maybe shouldn't have happened. Of course, you have a guard stripping it from Kirk Cousins, some risky decision on the turnovers. The defense, although they didn't come up clutch at certain times, I think actually was much improved over what they had last year. So that's a sign of hope for them. They should have won that game, but they maybe still have some hope there. But the Eagles started out hot. They were up like 16-0. Then they were a little slower the second half, but still overall looked like a good team that is looking to make it back to the Super Bowl this year. This game, now there are two injuries that are interesting for the Eagles. Nakobe Dean is for sure out, I believe, and James Bradbury. So two injuries there. The Vikings also have a couple guys questionable, but I don't think anybody officially ruled out yet. So some injuries there could play a factor. I will tell you this. My early just gut feeling is it's either going to be a blowout Philadelphia, or this could be a sneaky upset. I wouldn't be surprised. It wouldn't be the craziest thing for this is the type of game that now, with the way the Minnesota Vikings have been playing the last 2 years, they're going to maybe win some games that they shouldn't, and then they're going to lose some that they should, that they shouldn't lose. So I think that I could easily, I'm going to say, see it happening, but just given history, and I took that a lot into this video, that's something I haven't done a lot in my previous picks, is really looking at what has happened. Although trends can always break, I think it's safest for me to go with the Eagles. I would give it like a 75% confidence on that. I'm not fully confident that the Eagles, I think this could be a sneaky upset, but safer here to go with the Eagles. Now this next game, I was surprised by how well the Falcons played. I was not overly optimistic on them this season, and they did get that win. Even though they were favored, I took the upset in that one last week, but the Falcons did get the win. I will say, though, I'm still even shocked that this spread is within 2 points and has not moved this week. Actually, it did a little bit towards the Packers within half a point, but this is very slim. The Packers looked solid last week. Jordan Love was very, very good, even without his top receiver, Christian Watson. Him and Dobbs connected a couple times in the end zone. And the Falcons, of course, though, as said, were surprisingly good. They were able to force some turnovers defensively with Jesse Bates on Bryce Young that were key. I hope that now Tyler Allgeier's a good back too, but Bijan on that one touchdown was so explosive. I'm hoping they can get him the ball more. But I am concerned about their passing attack a little bit, Drake London didn't get anything going for him. But I think that these two teams both played better than I thought last week. Now, I did pick the Packers last week, but I did not expect them to win so heavily. With that said, I'm going to go with the Packers here. They are on the road, so once again, I could see that being something for the Falcons. But I think that between a tale of two young quarterbacks, I like Jordan Love over Desmond Ridder. So I'm going to go with the Packers, although this is going to be a close one realistically. Bills and the Raiders, the spread slightly going down. It was, I think, 10, and now the Bills are favored by 9.5, so still that way. Even after a disastrous performance in the second half specifically on Monday night. They had the game on paper wrapped up, but they weren't able to do it. Josh Allen did Josh Allen things. He hits the crazy plays, and he also takes some risks that maybe shouldn't have been taken. So I think that the Raiders were a team that performed better than I thought last week. Similar to the Falcons, I was not on paper a huge fan of the roster of what they had, but they were able to pull out a sneaky win against Denver. You know, it was close. I had Denver in that one. That was a close, almost upset. But I think that the Raiders were actually surprisingly there, but I think that Buffalo will bounce back this week. They have everything they need to really recover and make advantage of this next opportunity. They'll look at what happened, and I think that Josh Allen will keep the ball a little bit more within their reach. Would be good, but this could be interesting. But I'm going to go with the Bills here. Big spread, but I think the Bills are the safe pick. Now the Bengals and the Ravens. Ravens started slower than I thought they would. You know, you think that against the Texans they'd be able to pull away a little bit more, but they ended up, winning by a decent amount. But the Bengals, golly, they started slow. I mean, they just lost that contest against the Browns. And that was another one where, wow, that was surprising. They did, nothing. And they even had to take Burrow out at the end of the game, which I actually, applaud compared to what the Giants did with Daniel Jones. We'll talk about later. But Bengals still favored in this matchup now at home. Going to be a good game. These AFC North games always are fun and interesting. A lot of times defensive matchups, but here I think it could be two offenses. The Ravens do have the J.K. Dobbins injury, so next man up there on offense, but I think that they're going to look to be passing the ball a little bit more this year. So especially if Mark Andrews is playing this next week, we'll see what the injury report looks like. But Bengals, I believe, will bounce back this week and get a win there. I'm going to go with that direction. Lions and Seahawks. So this is maybe my biggest hot take of the week. I'm still just... if I see a great performance from the Lions this week, I'm officially in. But I'm just not quite there yet, and I think the Seahawks are just at the level of team where I would pick an upset here. They're just at that breaking point where if it was a little bit worse team, I'd easily go with the Lions. But I think the Seahawks, it was not the best week for them last week. Of course, they lose. But I think there's still some optimism here. The Lions pull off the great upset. We just did a video on Jahmyr Gibbs if you want to check that one out. They could be really, really explosive here. But I just need to see them do it again. I saw a lot happen that was maybe not even their, control that allowed them to win the game. They still won the game, though. And that's why I feel better about them than I did before last week. So I am a little higher on the Lions now. But you got to get some sneaky upsets in your picks. And I think this is my biggest one this week. I'm going to go with the Seahawks because I just think that maybe there's a chance the Lions are going to be a little fatigued after a big win last week. Maybe they're going to be a little bit slower this week. But I'll tell you this may be too much against the Lions, going with it. If the Lions win this week, especially in convincing fashion, I think I will hop on that train and will certainly take them seriously if they're heavy favorites. But right now, I think it's too close for comfort. I think this is too big of a spread. So I'm going to go with the upset, but that could be a close one for sure. Chargers, Titans. The Titans almost did it last week, but I didn't think they were going to be as close as they were. But in the end, it was concerns I had that ended up being the deciding factor why they lost to the Saints, which was, specifically defensively. I think the Saints were able to seal it up with some passes. Olave looked great, even Rashid Shaheed. Michael Thomas came back a little bit. That offense was rolling. But for the Titans, they came up clutch in defensive moments, as well as they had the one Kevin Byard touchdown, which was overturned. That could have changed the game for sure. But overall, the biggest concern actually was the offense. Ryan Tannehill did not look great. I think that they'll end up probably looking to turn to another quarterback by the end of the season. But this team by Mike Vrabel, it's just like with Mike Tomlin or Sean McVay or Pete Carroll, with teams that on paper we've thought the last few years maybe even would have downgraded a little bit. They're going to keep fighting. I think that Vrabel fits that bill. That team will not give up. So I think that they'll give Tannehill a little bit of time. But in the long run, I do think they'll switch. But Chargers looked good last week, even though they were not able to get the win. Of course, sacked at the end. But they looked good offensively, even involving Josh Kelly in the run game and getting into the end zone. They looked solid. It was a high-scoring matchup, a shootout. Titans can't play a shootout. So I have to go with the Chargers here. They just looked like a better team last week. Two teams that took a close loss, and the Chargers looked much better. So I'm going to go with them there on the road. Bears Bucs. This is one where this game will heavily influence what I think of the Bears the next few weeks. Similar to the Lions, but in the opposite direction. The Bears, I'd say I've been kind of median, like I'm in the medium on where people view them. Some people view them just still bottom of the NFC North, and other people think they'd win the NFC North. I kind of landed them in the middle. I believe I had them 7 or 8 wins, so I kind of thought their ceiling was. Last week, I would have hoped they would have played them a little bit closer with the Packers, but that just didn't happen. And the Bucs were surprisingly decent. Yes, they did win against the Vikings. Once again, they didn't look great, at times. They can't run the ball. And Baker didn't give his receivers the best stat lines or whatever, but he has the locker room, it seems to me, and the confidence of waking up feeling dangerous Baker Mayfield. And that's what you need to win football games with that team, because I thought that they were going to look a lot worse than they did. So they are truly a team that I now view, and where I viewed the Bears, which is where maybe a more middle of the road team compared to where I had them pretty down at the dumpster fire. But I'm surprised they're 3-point favorites after that performance. They must really be against the Bears here. But Fields did not look good. Let's be honest. Like, their offense was not good at all. Their defensive line is also atrocious. But I'm going to give them one more game on a leash. This is the same with the Lions, but on the opposite. It's like I'm picking against the Lions one last time, but if they win, I'm a little bit more convinced. Here, I've been on the teeter-totter, and if the Bears lose this game, I'll gain a little bit of confidence in the Bucs as well, but more so, you may be looking at a team that is looking at a quarterback next offseason. So I think this could be an interesting one. It's very going to influence. For now, I'm going to go with the Bears. Show me something. But if they don't, it's going to heavily influence the picks the rest of the year. Chiefs, Jaguars. This one is interesting because Jaguars are able to pull off a win. Close, scary game with the Colts. That was a great one to watch. Chiefs, they lose. If some catches are made, they look a little different. But hopefully now they're going to get Chris Jones back because they gave him that 1-year deal, which is interesting, by the way, just in its own. What is up with all the players that held out and then they settle for 1-year deals? I don't know, but I guess it works. And the thing with all of them is none of them have like a no-tag clause. Whether it was him, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, they're going to be in the same boat next year if they're not careful. So the Chiefs, though, I think will still be the Chiefs. I wasn't overly concerned seeing them lose. Like, yes, you saw without Kelsey, they are pretty much like really in trouble on offense without Kelsey. But defensively, they're going to be much improved, which is great for them. The Jaguars looked like they kind of did last year. They were able to pull off those wins. So I like their outlook a lot this season. But for now, I'm just going to go with the Chiefs because I think they're still the Chiefs now that they have teams, players coming back. But if Kelsey's not out there, that changes it a little bit. Might be a Jaguars type of game, but the Jaguars are solid. Just because I'm picking against them here doesn't mean I don't believe in them. I still think this is probably maybe one of the better games this week. I would definitely put them number one on the thumbnail, but I already put the Chiefs last week. So the Jaguars will get back in there this week. I think this might be the best game of the week, probably. The Colts and the Texans, two teams that I was pleasantly surprised at last week, even the Texans in a loss. I mean, they started all right. Stroud was all right. Like, once again, not concerned too much yet, but what didn't shoot the lights out, didn't throw anything down the field really or anything. It was interesting to see, like, Robert Woods might be the go-to target there. Just intriguing to see. But Anthony Richardson, I liked what he did. He obviously had the concerning, like, injury towards the end, so hopefully all good is there. But I liked what we saw from the Colts team. I think that they played pretty well against Jacksonville, and historically, they have kind of dominated this series, and that's why I'm going with the Colts here. Shocked it's only a 1-point spread, although the Texans did look decent last week. These are two teams that I think will play spoiler to a lot of games this season. So I'm going to go with the Colts, two teams that looked all right last week, but I'm going to go with the Colts just because I saw more offensively from them. Niners, Rams. Rams were sneaky last week, even though on paper I did not like their roster, and I still don't. They get it done against Seahawks, and they might get it done against some other teams this year. But in this one, maybe big spread, but the Niners looked like the best team in the NFL last week. So I'm going to go with the Niners. I have to. It's safe. They looked phenomenal. Purdy was lighting it up. McCaffrey getting the crazy big run. Defensively looking dominant as well. I mean, they look like a complete team. The favorite, I would say, of any team right now to win the Super Bowl. They looked, based on 1 week, they looked amazing. So I'm going to go with them, but the Rams can be sneaky. Stafford looked back to form a little bit. We got Puka Nacua going off on offense. So they're doing that without Cooper Kupp even coming back. I was interested by the running back situation in Los Angeles, too. I mean, Kyron Williams was getting the rock a lot, even though Cam Akers did get a touchdown towards the end. Giants, Cardinals. I believe this spread, I think it actually went more in the Giants' direction, but two teams that looked abysmal. Well, I said that the Cardinals are actually sneaky, but they're on paper still the worst. The Giants looked abysmal. That game was rough to watch. I mean, it was brutal. Like, that was over by the second quarter. I mean, I looked away for 1 second to quick finish an assignment, and it's like Dallas just scored another touchdown. I mean, it was incredible, and as said earlier, I was shocked they didn't pull out Daniel Jones until the last one. I agree with what Micah Parsons was saying this week. Like, that was, I don't know what they were doing. I mean, the game was over. The conditions were interesting too, but like, that was just a beatdown, which we'll talk about the Cowboys next. But did not like what I saw from the Giants there, and I did have them. Of course, my biggest hot take I'd say in the predictions video is I have Giants probably taking the biggest step down in the National Football League. I even have the Commanders finishing above them in the division. And with the way that played, on Monday, that might be in the cards. But the Cardinals, were sneaky competitive against the Commanders, but obviously not able to pull off the win. But Josh Dobbs does what he usually does. He gets thrown into these tough games, don't know what to do, and then he ends up playing all right, but just not enough for the win. Seems like we've seen that before with the Titans last year, maybe with the Steelers before that. But I just can't pick the Cardinals in any situation right now. I like Josh Dobbs as a capable backup, but he always gets thrown in these tough situations. And on paper, the Cardinals should be the worst without Kyler Murray. So for now, I just have to pick against them. But I once again think they could be a sneaky team. Now, the Jets-Cowboys, the spread went 6.5 points Cowboys' direction because, unfortunately, Aaron Rodgers ruptured his Achilles, or tore his Achilles, and is out for the year. That was unfortunate to see. That was another one where I, all of a sudden saw a couple plays. Actually, I may have even missed the first play because I was also finishing something, and all of a sudden I look and Wilson's out there. I saw Rodgers in one play, and then I once again all of a sudden saw Wilson was in. And I knew something happened, and seeing what happened was brutal. That is so unfortunate. But then watching the rest of that game after that, defensively, this team is phenomenal. Yes, Josh Allen handed them the ball 4 times with the fumble, but this defense is legit, and it does make you think if Rodgers did stay healthy, this team is maybe a top 3-5 favorite in the league for sure. But Zach Wilson looked all right. Had, the questionable pick, but had enough to me where the team can, go around him. It does change the outlook. I had 12 wins for this team with Aaron Rodgers, and with the way the defense is playing, I think that could have been a realistic possibility if he was healthy. But that just isn't the case anymore. So I'm going to go with the Cowboys. You have to here. I did think they'd take a step up this year. Didn't think they would be that dominant against the Giants. But the Jets, I think, will still be a sneaky because of how good that defense is. It's going to be like last year. If they start like last year but just don't fall apart, I still could see them at their ceiling getting to 9 or 10 wins just because of how good their defense is. But at the same time, I think their realistic might be more towards 7 or 8. Also depends if they bring in another quarterback. I do think Wilson will be the starter. This might be his, once again, another chance here. But if they bring in like a Jacoby Brissett, I've just seen that thrown out there. I don't think Carson Wentz would be any better. But if they bring in somebody, maybe they're at least close. But it's not going to be what Rodgers was. But Cowboys have to go with them here. They just look dominant. Their defense, once again, was electric. I mean, offensively, statistically, they weren't great maybe at times. But overall, they'll be fine for sure. They looked like a really good team. Two teams that the Commanders, I'd say I was disappointed a little bit from both teams, but not overly. Like, I would have loved to see the Commanders win by more, but the amount of points they put up and how they won, Sam Howell looked pretty good, and that's what you're looking to see here. I mean, that's totally fine. Brian Robinson looks like might be the lead at running back. All good there. Saw that maybe was going to be in the outcome. I would have loved Denver to get that win for the upset pick last week, but they just couldn't do it. They start with the onside kick was crazy. But, of course, he brought it back for a penalty. But I think Sean Payton, that team looked like what I maybe thought they were and what they will be like as improved, up to maybe a 8-win team. That's what I kind of saw there. And, that is, they might be able to pull out some close games more so than they did last year. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do it. I believe in the Broncos a little bit more, but the Commanders, I just saw more from Howell, and I like picking some upsets. This week I'm going a little upset heavy, picking 5 of the, there's 16 games. I guess it's not overly, but, it's getting in there. This is probably another one of my biggest ones with the Seahawks. I think it's the second biggest upset. So I'm going to go with the Commanders here. I just felt more optimism, even though there was a little improvement from the Broncos last week. Dolphins, Patriots. This one, actually, I forgot. Maybe I even forgot I even made this pick. This one might be totally bold. I kind of even forgot I went this direction, but I'm still going to go with it. The Dolphins looked phenomenal last week, and I will say this straight up. They looked like a top 5 football team. They definitely did. I was also pleasantly surprised by the Patriots. They brought it back in there, kept it close. The only reason I switched some picks this week of what I would normally do is I've been looking at, specifically with the division games, what the last 6 games or so have looked like in the series. And this is one where the home team usually can take advantage. I even remember back in the day whenever the Patriots were big-time favorites, but they'd go to Miami, they would have a problem. I mean, it was, the Patriots look just enough, and the spread is just close enough where I'm going to go with the Patriots here. This may be a bad pick. I'm going to say this is probably my least confident pick, but you got to take some chances, and this one I'm going more with history over on paper, because this is like with the Bengals and the Browns last week, where I thought the Bengals were a better football team, but I should have looked at 5 of the last 6 times in Cleveland. They've taken wins, but or maybe it was even 5 of the last 6 in the series. But this is just a sneaky pick. That's why I'm going with here. It's a bold one. This one may look bad in a week, but for now, I'm going to go with the Patriots pulling off a win at home. I expect a tight one within about a field goal. But I'll give you this. I'm not concerned about the Dolphins at all. They look phenomenal. They are a top 5 team. This is just my one kind of top team getting upset this week. The other ones I think are truly just spreads that are a little maybe skewed that are technically upsets, even though I don't think they are. But this one, is just a sneaky pick. This would be a lone wolf type of pick on on NFL Network. Panthers, I went with the upset last week. All feeling on that one. Didn't look, and it didn't happen. I underestimated the Falcons. I can't put faith in the Panthers over the Saints right now, just because even though the Saints were in a close game, I liked what I saw overall. So I'm going to go with the Saints here. I'm not overly concerned about the Panthers. I didn't have super high expectations for them this year. I thought they'd maybe get second in this division, but that's looking like it's going to be more one of the other two teams. But they'll be fine. I mean, Bryce Young was all right. They're going through growing pains, and that'll be okay. Saints, though, I think looked like a team that at their best could be competitive for a playoff spot this year. So I'm going to go with the Saints in this matchup. And lastly, the Browns and the Steelers. I'm going with another underdog. Here we go. Steelers are one of the teams that when I was predicting their outcome for the season, had them a lot higher than I thought they would be. I did not think they'd win the game last week. I think I took it. It might have been an upset even picking the Niners, but otherwise I went with the Niners and it worked out. They looked abysmal on offense. But defensively, I still see sparks with J.J. Watt. They could be all right. They got cooked a little bit on the outside. But Cleveland, yes, they had a dominant win. And I had, an AFC North team rising up to the top. I had the Browns doing a lot better this year. I think I had them getting to 10. It might have even been, I said straight up, if there's a ceiling of 13 wins with this Browns team. But it's all dependent on Deshaun Watson. And honestly, I didn't see a ton from Deshaun Watson. I didn't like what we saw. It looked like the same. We got to start considering if he's ever going to get back to his other form. I'm still concerned with what I saw offensively from them. And I think now, especially with Conklin out now, T.J. Watt could be a threat defensively for them. And at the same time, though, I can see Myles Garrett is an absolute beast. And that whole defensive line for Cleveland is dominant. And so they might be able to destroy Steelers' offensive line. But I have more faith right now in the Steelers' offense than I do the Browns' offense, which feels weird to say given the names on each side. But that's just the way it is. I was not overly I just think the Steelers went up against a really, really good team, and they did have concerns. I don't love Kenny Pickett's outlook, but he was fine. I think he'll be fine in the long term. We saw maybe he did have a concussion early that made him just seem a little bit off. But the Browns, although they won, I was a little bit more concerned offensively with. So for that reason, I'm going with the Steelers upset. So I'm looking at it, and I'm taking some risks here. I'd say maybe I start looking at my my least confident pick is probably the Patriots over the Dolphins. But here this week at the division games, I took a look at what it's looked like in the series in the last 6 games or so. And that's what I see with the trends, that the home team might have an advantage here. And the Patriots look good enough where I think they could be sneaky. But not surprised the Dolphins pulled that one. I just have to say that's my boldest choice, actually, probably. Spread-wise, though, it is Seahawks over the Lions. We're just going to take some chances. Sometimes you have to go against what it is because the games are never all the favorites. So, and I think after 2 weeks, we're going to keep learning more and more about what the teams actually are. But you also just have to take some chances. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. I'll be back with some more football content shortly. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.